في ظل وجود بوليوود وهوليوود.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I'd like to bring up our panelists, beginning with Mukund Cairae. Would you please take the stage? Michael Flanagan, Mick Flanagan, Ali Mustafa, Joe Pichirallo, and Vijay Singh. Because the panel is running late, we started talking about what we would say an hour ago, and hopefully you haven't missed the best of the conversation because it was really quite a lively and interesting discussion. We're going to try to answer a limited number of questions that basically define whether we can have a viable industry in this region, and if so, what it might look like. So I'll tell you the questions that we're going to address, and if you want to participate in the conversation in real time, you can ask your questions on your iPad, and hopefully I'll be able to interject them into the conversation rather than waiting to the end. So the first question we're going to discuss is more of a cultural one, which is there an Arab cinema, or is this a more regional opportunity? The second is the industry is generally defined as film and television. Is this one industry or two? The third is, which every industry needs, one of my absolute favorite quotes about our industry came from Woody Allen, who said that if it wasn't a business, they would call it show. And so we need to have a model that makes this industry creatively viable, but also financially viable. And there's a lot of experience here that we can all learn from. And then the question is, we clearly need capital, but what other constraints are there for this industry in order to achieve its potential? And finally, because we have two gentlemen with rich experience from India, what lessons can we learn from the Indian experience that are relevant to our part of the world and will help us further develop our sector here? So let me begin with the first question, and I'll start off with Ali and ask this question about Arab cinema. Is this more of a regional opportunity, or is this a pan-Arabic opportunity?
Is there Arab cinema? Good afternoon, everyone. And is there an opportunity?
And is there an opportunity?
Yes and yes. Obviously, there is an Arab cinema. I have just come back from Egypt, where it's over a century of Arab cinema. The rest of the Arab world obviously caught on and started developing Arab cinema. The Gulf were the last to catch on when it comes towards, in terms of film, but obviously they have a TV industry which ranges a few decades. In terms of an opportunity, yes. In terms of a business model, yes, it is possible. I mean, we are able to make this sustainable. But in terms of, I will usually, well, I'm going to be speaking on what I know best, and it's the Emirates and the industry I'm in, or the, should I say, budding industry that I'm in. Arab cinema is extremely important because obviously it's in our culture to tell stories. It's in our DNA. And cinema is a medium that is so powerful that will make our voices heard and also travel. What I find really fascinating when it comes to, I guess, cinema in general, well, here in the Emirates in general, is that from please stop me if I'm wrong, but from my understanding, the first film or even short film to be shot on celluloid, which is, well, at the time it was Super 16 millimeter, was a short film that I had done as a graduation film in 2003. So it goes to show you how far we have come, where this year alone we have about 5 productions in production also that have been made, Emirati feature films, while usually it would be a feature film every 2 years, if that. So we have come a long way, but also come a long way in terms of our infrastructure, our facility, that we are able to facilitate international productions. And some of the biggest international productions, some of the biggest franchises in the world. I mean, we had Mission Impossible in Dubai, we had the Fast and the Furious franchise that happened in Abu Dhabi, also Star Wars, one of the biggest in the world. And we were able to facilitate that. So that goes to show, and is a testament to how far we have come. So in terms of an opportunity, I mean, endless. Do we have an Arab cinema? Yes, we do.
Mick?
Well, no, I completely agree. You know, our thing at the Commission is to drive a sustainable film and television industry here. And when you look at the Star Wars stuff is great, and Fast and Furious is great because it affords us the opportunity for skills transfer to local Emiratis. We have interns working on the shows, which helps facilitate that skills transfer. But really, our bread and butter is the regional stuff. Star Wars was great. It's a big marquee name. Again, we've got skills transfer. People get to work on those shows that otherwise wouldn't get to. But really, it's the regional stuff. The regional guys will do 200 to 300 shooting days a year this year, where Star Wars comes in for 10 days, Fast and Furious comes in for 10 days. So in terms of the region and the Arabic business, we see it as, and I know the next question is film and television, but certainly from the production side, whether it's film or television, the regional Arabic stuff is by far, you know, at first it would be the regional Arabic stuff, then it would be the Bollywood stuff, and then right now is the Hollywood stuff kind of trailing far behind. So I just see the continuation of the regional stuff and the local stuff increasing.
Right. And while the infrastructure is focused on both film and television, in the Western Europe and the United States, individuals identify themselves very closely with a specific segment of the industry. I do television, I do films, I do comedy television, I do dramatic television. Here, one of the lessons that we've tried to impart is that if you want to have a serious financial career, be able to support your family the same way that all your friends and colleagues who are working in other industries do, you have to think of yourselves more broadly, because we don't have the scale that allows that kind of focus and concentration. And the impact of television, as we were talking inside, maybe Vijay and Mukund can talk about how television really impacted the development of the industry in India and how that may be relevant here.
May I? Good afternoon. So we celebrated 100 years of Bollywood last year. Indian cinema started roughly 1912. Public broadcasting on television started 1960. So we're talking a 48-year difference. Private satellite channels started 1992. So we're talking another 32-year difference. Between 92 and now is roughly 22, 23 odd years. We have a thriving 30,000 hours of drama series content made every year or more. And we're talking 30,000 hours, I'm only referring to Hindi. There's a lot of strong regional. Compared to that, Bollywood is supposed to be this global phenomenon, and I think the Hindi film industry, which roughly does between 200 or 220 films a year, as opposed to the 2,000 odd that Bollywood is credited with, is only a certain fraction of the actual amount of content that's created. Now, what does 30,000 hours do for you? It ensures that there's a whole new industry of media professionals across every discipline who are gainfully employed throughout the year. Because a Bollywood film is going to come, wrap up in possibly 6 to 8 months, barring a couple of greats which took 12 years to create. But that's few and far in between. And you're going to go off and you're going to give rise to a lot of freelancers coming in, as opposed to dedicated producers, cameramen, script writers, junior artists, lightmen, whatever it is, over a full year period. There is no reason why there should be, one of your next questions was, is it film and television? In India, film is completely separate. They are now getting into television, but the television industry by itself is self-sustaining and far more powerful and sticky as opposed to film. I'm sure Vijay may disagree with that point.
Yeah, I think because I'm only film, to give you a sense for what happens in Bollywood, I think traditionally the industry started off sort of looking down on each other, and there was film and there's television. But I think if you look at both Hollywood as well as Bollywood, I mean, the crossover has begun to happen. And I think the writing on the wall is very clear. You need talent that is willing to and able to work across whether it's film or on television. I mean, just for a moment, look at Hollywood today. I think the quality of television in Hollywood has gone up so much, and that's one of the reasons for that is because you have a lot of talent, writers, etc., who are moving from Hollywood film to television. Now, as a consequence of that, we in Hollywood are actually are no longer doing certain genres of film. For example, be it thrillers, drama, because television does it so well. So I think all of this reinforces the fact that you need talent that can actually work both across film and television to have really a robust homegrown industry.
Right. Well, let me ask Joe, because you have an interesting perspective as both a longtime industry professional and now as an educator training the next generations of filmmakers. What are you seeing both from an industry perspective and also the kids that are just entering the field?
Yeah, I mean, I think I have two thoughts that are parallel thoughts about how to build, a bigger Arab cinema, as it were. One, I think, from my now educational background, I think one of the ways tying in what he just said is that content drives successful TV shows, successful movies. And in order to have content, you need people who know how to translate their unique imaginations and originality into stories that other people can relate to and can connect to. So it involves people being maybe further trained in the ability to write. And then I think also, where I think there's a great opportunity here, directors like Ali are one example. I think there's an opportunity to develop, which is not completely a business model, but it's an opportunity, I think, to develop filmmakers who can be seen as not just Arab filmmakers, but first-class, world-class filmmakers who are taking films to the major film festivals like Cannes, Venice, Sundance. Now, that doesn't necessarily, and I know, Michael, you and I maybe have a little disagreement on this, that doesn't necessarily yield revenue. But what it does is it gives the industry in a particular locale credibility. And it brings a culture that may not be as accessible today to the rest of the world, and hopefully the rest of the world will understand this culture in ways that it's not able to, because there's a very oftentimes one-dimensional media exposure to what's going on in the Arab world, and the Arab world is actually a very rich, multi-textured world, and I think the challenge is how do you marshal that in a way that you have filmmakers who can not only make movies that appeal in the Arab world, but that people at these major festivals and other locales get. So that would be my education point. On a business level, I think actually where you have an interesting opportunity, because Hollywood is pulling a little bit away from making as many movies, is like, just go for it. You go buy the next Harry Potter, put up the money, bring in the infrastructure that you're putting together here, and then if you control those properties, then you control the game. And I think that's sorry?
An Arab version of Harry Potter? Or?
No, I think that anytime it has nothing to do with Arab. Anytime you localize filmmaking, what I'm saying is that the filmmakers like you should pursue very specific, what I would call independent films that showcase that you have a unique way of seeing the world. That's a separate model from the second one I'm just making, which is more a revenue-generating commercial model, which that model is, if you're going to compete on the worldwide stage, you can't have movies that are solely subtitled and very culturally specific. You can if you're going for a limited art house, award-winning world, which I think you should go for.
But I think what you just described is the Imagination model. Through our partnerships with Walter Parks and Laurie McDonald and Hyde Park, People here may not know, but Parks McDonald Image Nation was the producer of Men in Black 3. We were the producer of Flight. 99 Homes, which has been a credible success in Toronto and Venice and Telluride, is our film. So basically, our model today financially as Image Nation is that many of the things that we do regionally and locally not yet able to support themselves financially. But our goal is for Image Nation as a company to be profitable, and happily we are. But that is because we're following exactly what Joe described, which is taking the international profits that we're earning and then reinvesting them along with 2454, who we work hand in glove with, to build the future of the industry here. I would just like to point out, so that because we did have a very interesting discussion for an hour before the session began, what it was that we were disagreeing about. Because then I'll turn to Ali, who has, I think, interesting views on this. It's not, the disagreement was not about the need to subsidize content, because that's, in a sense, what we do today, mainly because of the region's lack of cinemas and the size of the advertising market and the license fees that one can earn from broadcasters in the region. So we do subsidize content now. My biggest complaint was that before 2454 came along and before Image Nation came along, the market was also subsidized. They were principally for short films. And candidly, I thought it destroyed a generation of filmmakers, because our real business is a business of discipline, and we have certain creative and financial hurdles that have to be met in order for films to be made. And a sense of entitlement that created people who thought they would get money and then do what they want just alienated them from the real world. And you know, I met these people who made one short film and they walk around with business cards that say filmmakers. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what is going on here? So if we have subsidies, the biggest question then is who's going to give them out? And governments are not equipped to do that. There are very few people. So we apply, along with 2454, pretty strict standards, which doesn't please everybody, but it ensures a quality that people haven't really come to expect in our region and are pleasantly surprised when they see our films. So that's what we were really disagreeing about. But Ali has a different view, I think.
Yeah, my view was the European model, which you obviously disagreed with. We have quite a few cinemas in this country, and the ticket ranges from $10, and it can go up to, I guess, the gold or platinum suites go up to over 100 dirhams. If that could be regulated or monitored to a point where just a few dirhams out of a ticket sale would go into some form of a fund, let's say a cultural fund, doesn't even necessarily have to be film, where then it would be passed on to, I would say, people like yourselves, people with experience, or a committee that is held annually with a group of professionals who come down, and people can submit their scripts or their projects or their artwork or whatever it is that could benefit that person, that national of that country in doing what they are passionate about in terms of the arts. And that's what I thought would be something which could be an interesting approach. I've said this several times over the years. It hasn't happened yet. I would like it to happen, but you feel it's something that doesn't work. And you said it said about where it would lower standards.
I believe it would.
Okay.
And the reason is that we see this in France, we see this in Italy. The most successful producers today are the ones who know how to get grants. They're not that, 20, 30 years ago, they filled the theaters with movies that people wanted to see. Now you have bureaucrats allocating funds, and it's not based on creative excellence. It's based on the old boy network and a lot of other things, which unfortunately here I think you would see in spades.
Let's hope imagination lasts for a very long time then.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Can I just add another point? Because I think one is the issue of funding, which I think you're addressing. I think the other very important issue is for us to sort of think through as to what is going to be the underlying business model for Arabic cinema. So, for example, when you look at the Hollywood model, you see that roughly 50% of their revenue comes from home entertainment, whether it's physical or digital. When you look at the Bollywood model, conversely, roughly about 40 to 50% comes from cable and satellite licensing rights. So I think it's going to be important to actually think through, if you want to build a sustainable model, as to where is that revenue going to come through. So for example, one of the suggestions that comes to my mind is that, I think you need to be developing film and then ensuring that film gets played out and licensed across television. So, you're building a revenue stream which will help make it sustainable. Because otherwise, for film to be sustainable only on the back of theatrical is pretty tough.
Unless, of course, you have the concept of it being insisted that all films which are created here are actually run in theaters if they meet the financial models or the basic criteria that a theater needs. The state that both of us have our headquarters in, which is Maharashtra in India, the state government has done exactly that. So all movies made in that state are mandated to be in theaters for a definitive period of time. And that definitely helps to encourage local filmmaking.
Well, that especially is important here for two reasons. First of all, our audiences are so small that we need the time to generate the revenues. But more importantly, we live in a country where 80% of the population are expats. And so the second thing we need is the time for the word of mouth to migrate from the local community, who tend to be the first ones to come and see an Emirati film, to tell their friends and colleagues that this is a great movie. It's not an Emirati film. The wonderful thing about Ali's film From A to B is that it's not an Emirati film. It's a film that it was made by an Emirati director. We hope that this picture will play in every country in the world and compete successfully for its creative and commercial reasons. But that's not really accepted yet by the expat community here, because there have only been 3 films. So they have no expectations. It's not that they have low expectations, they have no expectations. And generally, except for the Star Wars weekends and other key openings, people make a decision to go to the movies and then decide what film to see. And if they have all the choices of that week's releases from Hollywood, the chances that they would take a risk on seeing a Emirati-made film are fairly low. So they have to wait till the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th week till their friends say, I saw this film From A to B, it was fantastic, you should see it. And if we're not in the theaters long enough for that to occur, it'll never happen.
Why isn't satellite supporting it? I don't get it. We're talking 300 million people, Middle East, North Africa.
Well, this was the first question that we raised. Is this a regional market or is this a local market? I think that From A to B, we'll test that, because Ali was talking about the experience in Cairo the other night at the Cairo Film Festival. What was so exciting to all of us associated with the film is that the audience reaction was just as overwhelmingly positive as it was when it premiered at the Emirates Palace. So we have hopes that this will be the first time that we've made a film that will be accessible to everyone interested. But most people outside our region basically look down their noses at local production, either for linguistic and dialect reasons, or sometimes for quality reasons.
Can I just add to that, because that's a really interesting point about people looking down. There was a time in India, Bollywood is huge, as we know, in India, but there was a time, 15 years back, when even in India, people would look down on Bollywood. And I think what Bollywood has done is what I call the Madonna Act. Every year it reinvents itself. it actually has genuinely become the best representation of India's popular culture. So I think what is done is that because it's become relevant, it's something that has become enduring and it's growing really rapidly. So to me, I think, it comes down to good content. I think if there is good content, and I think the fact of the matter is that you have, as such an ancient culture, you've got lots of storytelling, the history here. I think, if you make good content, I think it'll get people into cinemas. It comes down to that.
Completely. In fact, to continue the discussion we were doing, the last top 30 Bollywood hits world over, which are in the $30 to $90 million league, there's only one traditional film that comes to mind. Otherwise, everything else is contextually in India, but it's pretty much a world story, including the ones that were produced here. Any of the movies you look at, whether it's set in Chicago, it's set in Abu Dhabi, that's fine. The story is contextual in India, but it's a powerful story, and that's why it sells so well.
Well, this isn't a question we discussed beforehand, but I'd like to ask Ali, when you were conceiving of From A to B, what was it that you were, not from a storytelling point of view, because the movie speaks for itself, but from an audience point of view, to whom were you trying to tell this story?
To me, making films is to make sure it gets seen by as many people as possible. Otherwise, what's the point? And at the same time, like you said, it can't be show, it has to be show business. So you have to also think on a commercial perspective and what people would like, what people would enjoy. So this is, when we came up with the A to B, it was simply based on those statistics. And even in terms of cast, even in terms of nationality, there was a whole, shall I say, plan and strategy behind it outside of the story. The story was there. Once we built the story and we knew what we wanted to do, it was about choosing the right people to fit within that story. Obviously, Egypt have a huge population. Saudi Arabia have, mashallah, a huge population. So we were looking at people from those countries that would obviously have lived in Abu Dhabi, went to an American school, but also have that reach. And so when I arrived last night from Cairo, and when I experienced the reaction from the Egyptian audience, it was overwhelming. I mean, we did not know what to expect. I mean, we had somewhat of, I guess, an expectation of people's maybe liking the film here, because it was done here. It was another Emirati production done here. But in Egypt, it was something that I was actually very, very nervous about, and we should be all very proud of what we achieved with the film over there, and hopefully globally. I mean, there's nothing holding us back. I do want to speak about, actually, when you mentioned the TV industry and the film industry, and asking if it's one. Now, I can only speak for the Emirates. Currently is, and also the commercial industry. Our commercial industry is one of the biggest industries in the region. When I graduated from film school, there was nowhere else for me to go but the commercial industry. Whether it was, gripping or gaffing or helping out on set or doing whatever I can to get my hands dirty and seek knowledge or getting the experience of being on set, it was just the commercial industry. But the TV industry over here has been around for quite a while. But what I have noticed is that it's only been progressing quite slowly. And when I speak, I speak about the local productions. I'm not speaking about any of the productions outside of the Emirates. While our films, on the other hand, are somewhat improving in quality. I'll give you an example. I have a colleague, Nawaf Al-Janahi, who's a film director, who made a wonderful film called The Circle, whose next film, Sea Shadow, you could see there was a difference in terms of its production, in terms of its quality. There was a discipline, as you mentioned. I believe that A to B is a better film than City of Life. Obviously, we mature as filmmakers over the years. But what I noticed with the TV industry, and I've only found this out quite recently because I was actually given a script, is that their system, their format, the script itself. I come from a school of working with Final Draft. We worked on our scripts in English. There are softwares, 99% of the world use Final Draft to work on their scripts. And when we want to convert those scripts into, shall we say, production budgets, there are other softwares that marry into the system, like Movie Magic, where you slap it in. You get all the numbers, the scene numbers, everything comes out. You know everything from the extras to the cast, how many days and so forth, and how much everything costs. While here, on the other hand, the scripts are written in Arabic in a slightly different format, which is a shame. And if there's anyone in IT here, please can you make an Arabic version of Final Draft? Because it's important. This discipline is important. It not only helps creativity, but it definitely helps the quality in production, because in terms of its budgets, they would have the scene numbers, sometimes the scene numbers would be there. And given a TV show that would be during Ramadan or set during Ramadan, it would be hundreds and hundreds of pages. Now, because they wouldn't have an Arabic version of Movie Magic to be able to account for everything, there's going to be a lot of negligence and a lot of things missing in terms of what's going on, in terms of what's budgeting. Everything is based on everything's an approximate. It's an approximate. This is how much we think it's going to cost. This is where I think things need to start changing. We have it in film, and what we're able to do in film is we're able to convert our scripts, what I've done with A2B. We initially wrote it in English on Final Draft, did Movie Magic, and then later on brought in our cast, and we translated the dialogue. But the TV industry here, I think that's a very important factor. And once things like that start to happen, we're really going to start to see a change in quality. And from what I understand, you guys are also getting involved in TV and planning on doing exactly what we're starting to witness, coming out of the US and Europe, and shows like stations like HBO. In terms of that quality, it's like you could sit there and watch an entire season and feel like you've watched a cinematic production all the way through.
Right.
We're able to achieve those things.
Well, I'm going to turn to Mick in 1 second, but I just would like to underscore and reinforce what you just said. In addition to the things that ImageNation is well known for, the feature films and the documentary films and the TV series that we've done, because we're part of the Abu Dhabi family, a lot of what we do is also supporting other Abu Dhabi organizations to help them achieve their own communications goals. Not what we think they should be. It's their goals. We just help them realize it. And before we came along, you found exactly what you described. People would come and say, we can do this film, we can do this project, and it'll be $1 million. And at the end of the day, no one knew whether 800,000 was on the screen and 200,000 was in somebody's pocket, or 800,000 was in somebody's pocket and 200,000 was on the screen. Now, when we're working collaboratively with these organizations, and it ranged from the Armed Forces to the Executive Council and many other Crown Prince's Court, we're asking questions like, how much do you have for lighting? How much do you have for sound? And this kind of transparency, of course, is not very much appreciated by the old guard, because they have no interest in answering these questions. But fortunately, because of our position, if they want to work, if they don't answer it, they're not a candidate for the opportunity. So this is changing slowly, but it's sort of like many things here. There's a vested interest in resisting change that actually is from the bottom. What I was saying earlier in a meeting that we had with one of the speakers, and Nora, what's so inspirational to me, one of the things that is so inspirational to me about living and working in Abu Dhabi is the leadership and how inspired they are. And when we work on projects, the leadership is so far ahead of where public tastes are today. We're doing this court show, Abu Dhabi Judicial, which I describe as LA Law meets Dallas and Abu Dhabi. And when we went to the judicial department to get examples of cases that we were going to cover, we had our list of things that we were thinking of including in the scripts, and then we got their list, and we were just, really impressed by, there was nothing that we could have thought of that wasn't on that list. And so it's interesting that the people at the top want to do the right things. And it's the people that are sort of underneath who we need to bring along because they're very comfortable with the traditional ways.
I'm sorry, I was just thinking back on how the film industry in India is, and I was wondering how Ali would possibly work there, because he was talking about this order and all those things. And I can assure you, 30,000 hours of content, chaos. In fact, if I remember correctly, Hollywood has also made a movie like a spoof on Bollywood with a very senior actor. And finally, at the end of the movie, the last day of the schedule, this guy has been demanding the script, right, from day one. He gets the script as a gift. Here's my gift to you, the producer says. I've done the script. But despite that chaos, and imagine the immense difficulty of trying to sell that programming when you don't have the script. You have to sell the idea across to multiple nations, Russia, Middle East, Africa. You don't have a script. And yet we're going across to all Discop, Cannes, ATF, everywhere. It just works. I don't really know if you can define order in creativity. I mean, look at the difference. I'm the suit, you're the creative guy. Look at the difference. Is it needed?
Can I just disagree with you on that point?
Please.
I mean, you're right. I think traditionally the industry has been very chaotic, but I think speaking definitely for Bollywood film, I think one of the defining changes that has happened in the last few years is that I think there is a greater realization for discipline. So all these principles of movie magic, etc., all these softwares are being used. So I think it's beginning to change, and I think is again the sign of maturing of a particular industry. So I think there is hope there.
Michael, I want to open up another kind of point, because the way in which people receive stories and content is changing. The idea that the theater and theatrical revenue or even television is the only place people see movies or TV shows is not the case anymore. I don't know exactly what's going on in this region, but in the United States, young filmmakers really have an opportunity to get exposure directly with their audience and actually build their audience without needing an agent or a studio because of the rise of social media. So in other words, Twitter and crowdsourcing are becoming really integral tools to building careers. It's not exactly proving to be a huge revenue model at the moment, but I think that would be something to think about as you guys try to get audiences to come see A to B. You actually can have more control or play a role in that beyond just going to a local distributor to market it and get it out, but by building awareness and by building Twitter followings and things like that. Right. So I think that's really important. And also to understand, look at things like Netflix and Hulu, which are I call them the modern day equivalents of video companies back in the 70s and 80s when they were booming. They were financing product like Reservoir Dogs or Sex, Lies, and Videotape. So now Netflix is not only conveying content, but it's creating it and having a huge impact. So there may be some lessons for what's going on there and thinking more expansively. There may be more hope than just relying on people going to the theater and picking your film over Spider-Man or something like that. So it's just a thought.
I just wanted to circle back to what Ali was saying and the general question in film and television, feature film and television. For us here, speaking for the Film Commission, we look at it as really the same. And as you mentioned, commercials as well, which is why in our rebate plan, we kind of have different setups for each. because we see that that is going to really drive the industry. We were having a conversation about television series and how we can really start to shape the opinion of the parents when the kids are actually going to work every day on a television series. You know, and a successful series will have, you know, further seasons. So when it comes to, I'm not going to drill too deep, but when you talk about getting vendors set up and all the things that we're pushing very hard and attaining with our infrastructure push right now is when, you know, crew and vendors and service providers are starting to see that you have that work, they're going to come, and it'll just create more and more. So right now, all of it is great, even when it comes to multi-camera television and reality shows. You know, if you're a runner on a feature film, you can certainly be a runner on any of it and learn different skills. And you never know where you wind up in this business, is what I tell young people just starting out. I mean, I started as an intern at a public access TV studio, and I'm here now, which is fantastic. And if I never would have guessed that in a million years. But the more opportunities we have is keeping all those businesses together and keeping them coming to Abu Dhabi.
And what about the question of, since the Bollywood, or I don't even want to use the word Bollywood anymore, I'll use the Indian experience, is so rich and so successful. What are the things that have worked that are not unique to India, but that were successful in India that we in this region can learn from and consider and incorporate into our own plans for future growth?
Yeah, I mean, I think I actually believe, given my understanding of Bollywood and in the Indian experience, that I believe there's a real positive opportunity that's waiting for Arab cinema, and for the following reasons. And these are some of the common elements I see between India and the Middle East. Number one, I think both are very old cultures. I think both of them have a lot of storytelling which is integral to the culture. I think the one very important point is demographics. We shouldn't forget. I think in India, 40% of the population is less than 24 years. And I'm told here, as much as possibly 60% of the population is less than 24. So I think when you have such a rich demographic dividend on the ground, I think it is absolutely imperative that you have a film industry, and it will work. I think there are issues on, for example, on getting windowing in theaters and stuff like that. I think there's issues of pricing. Perhaps the pricing needs to be two-tier, where you have, perhaps a lower price point for local films to actually build this market opportunity. And I think there's another reason I believe, you must have Arab cinema. And I mean, in the morning, it was really interesting to hear a lot about some of the real challenges and how social media could actually be doing something which could possibly be negative. And I think, I truly believe that one of the reasons we've never had a revolution in India is because we have Bollywood. I mean, we've got this industry which provides such a fantastic diversion for the audiences. And I think it's, on a more sort of serious note, I think, cinema is that piece of entertainment which is integral to provide that softness to society. I mean, this is one of the soft values that must be developed. So I think not only does it have a future, I think it needs to have a future for the long-term benefit of the region.
It's the voice, may I add, it's the voice of the nation as well as not the voice. It's also just entertainment sometimes. And there are times where you're trying to be, especially here in this region, it is a medium that is so new that even though they may have been a feature film out of the Emirates that may have been done in the 80s or one that may have been done in the 90s, but theatrically, it is something that is so new. And that's all happened after the millennium. And for you to be creative with your stories, it is something which it's a process. Sometimes it's difficult, but sometimes also you have to be very clever about it, because you sit there and say, can I say this or can I say that? Because as a society, we're not very open people, and we don't like to speak about taboos. But which I find very fascinating is that on TV, it's fine. Like, I remember a couple of years ago, there was a show, even on Ramadan, there would be a Ramadan program, and they were talking about some of the craziest things I would never even imagine putting in a film. But yet, when it comes to a film, I get people who would come up to me, and some people who are actually, intellectuals in the media industry, and they would tell me, do you think you want to revisit that scene? I don't think that scene's going to fly. You want to revisit that scene? I said, which scene? He said, for example, let's say it was, let's say even City of Life. The boy goes into a nightclub. You sure you want to speak about that? I said, does it happen? He said, yes, it happens. Does it happen everywhere in the Gulf? Yes, it does happen. Well, outside of Saudi, but does it happen everywhere? He said, yes, it does. I said, so why can't I speak about it? He said, because, you can't really speak about these things. It's not right. I said, if we don't speak about them, how are we going to discuss it? How are we going to open these discussions up in the house, for example? And then there was this other time where in my last film they said one character had a boyfriend. They said, you sure you want to do that? I said, does it happen? He said, yes, it does happen. So what's the problem? My belief is that the more films we make, the more we can speak about these things, number one, not be afraid of these topics, and at the same time, eventually, become immune to them, where we can then go out and make films and not have to worry about what we can or cannot say, or what we can speak about. Like films that are set, in the Western world. You would go to the cinema here, you would go to the festival here, you would watch a foreign film, and you might see some of the craziest things you've seen in your life on screen, but it won't faze you, because they did it. Eventually, and the only way we can have a cinema industry is when we open our minds to new things. That's all I have to say.
Well, Ali, I couldn't agree with you more. And to give you some hope, some parts of the world which are far more oppressive than here, like Iran, the Soviet Union, China, filmmakers have persevered, and despite huge totalitarian obstacles, movies like White Balloon and some of Zhang Yimou's movies and Shanghaiga. So you should keep persevering, because fortunately I don't think this world here is as oppressive as these other places, but when there's a voice and a passion like you have, then there will be ways to get that out there.
Right,
and,
but
and be
just to be
received well.
clear, here, as Ali said, that we don't really have any censorship. Right. What we have is a conservative audience taste, which is causing creators to second-guess themselves and the content. When you see From A to B, it had to pass through the National Media Council, and the problems, as I tried to say earlier, is they're not here at the top. They're here at the bottom. It's a very unique situation, and so what we have to do is, as Ali said, is educate the audience, both Emirati and expat, to accept the creative content and the stories that they're used to hearing in other forms, but now hopefully about to see instead of listen to or read. We have just now 5 minutes left, so if people from the audience want to, you don't even have to ask a question. If you have a comment or something that you want to add, you're more than welcome. Otherwise, we'll just continue the conversation for another few minutes.
It's not working. Hello. Good evening. My name is Mohammed. How are you, Michael?
Good.
My name is Mohammed from the French Embassy. I'm in charge of cinema. I just have two remarks. The first one, Michael, when you mentioned the fund, you mentioned the bureaucrats that decides to which the money is going to go. I just want to say that in France, there is not one bureaucrat. All the selection committee.
There's 1,000.
No. In France, yes, in France. Not in the selection committee for cinema and for the fund. It's really made up only by professionals. That's my first remark. Secondly, I agree with you, Michael. We know each other very well, so I can. I agree with you. There are so many bad movies in French cinema, but so many beautiful and great movies. And we are ready to pay the price, because who can tell that a movie is going to be a good movie or not? And I'm going to just finish with one very interesting joke. It was actually a joke about a French executive from Vivendi who went to Hollywood. And when he met for the first time Ron Meyer, the CEO of Universal Studios, Ron Meyer explains to him what is the business model of cinema in Hollywood. So Ron Meyer tells him there is 80 movies we lose money with them, and 80% of the movies we lose the money with them, and 20% of the movie we're making a lot of money out of them. So the French, too, very interested about that, just answered, why don't we concentrate on the 20% that makes money? So, thank you.
Thank you. I would like to, while you're just getting to the next question, say that Mohammed, thanks to his very diligent efforts, we sent 5 young Emiratis to France, to La Famille, the National Film School of France, this summer. They had a wonderful experience, and it was really your dedication and determination to make this program happen that it did. So thank you so much.
We were actually fortunate. One of the deals that we had with our Star Wars partners, that they were going to take 3 interns with them similarly to get experience working with folks, over in the UK. So that was it was a great opportunity. We're looking certainly with the other folks that we have at 2454, the Tadrib and the Creative Lab, is to kind of foster a lot more of that. And it's kind of the idea of inspire them, train them, and then hire them. So it's a real joined up approach, and I think that's great. The more stuff we can do like that, the faster we'll build a terrific industry.
Right. Yes?
Hi, thank you for the panel, but I want to take this opportunity to pay tribute to the memory of Muhammad Khalaf al-Mazrou'i, who passed away a couple of days ago in a very tragic car accident. Without him and his legacy, we wouldn't have institutions such as Image Nation and Abu Dhabi Film Commission. So I just want us to all remember all of the accomplishments he's had. Thank you.
Thank you. There's one more in the back, and unless there are others, maybe.
Sorry, hi. My name is Samir Al-Jabri from Abu Dhabi Film Commission. My question is to Ali Mustafa. Basically, as an Emirati filmmaker, I want, let's say, your advice for upcoming filmmakers who are, let's say, hesitant of becoming filmmakers because of their fear of how are they going to make it as a sustainable income for them and becoming leading in that future. Because me as myself, I've studied media and filmmaking, and all the time this question was at the back of my mind. Like, how am I going to sustain myself? How am I going to be, let's say, securing a good income, being a filmmaker? And now that the industry is actually developing, what would be like your advice and your thoughts on that? Thank you.
Honest answer is, go for it. Is it sustainable for you to make this a career and solely a career? You have to be crazy to take the challenge. That's all I can say, because obviously it is extremely difficult. When I left film school, you basically have to fight. And what I did was try to get as many jobs as I can on commercials. Now, if I could give you advice on exactly what I did, is to get on as many sets as you can. Learn as much as you can while on sets. And at the time, for me, it was the commercial industry. Now we have this budding film industry that's growing. We have a TV industry that's growing. So wherever you can get your hands dirty, get your hands dirty. Whatever job that you can get, take it. I went from helping the camera department, the lighting department, the gripping department, to becoming a third assistant director, controlling a crowd in an airport, to a second assistant director, controlling 500 people on a beverage soft drink commercial, to eventually becoming a first assistant. And when I decided that I wanted to direct my first commercial, it was impossible because it's a catch-22 situation. You need to have a showreel to make a commercial, and for you to have a showreel, you need to have shot a commercial. So I eventually, I can't remember, I think I've sold my car, I think I did, and I raised some money and I made my first commercial for a top car brand, which they enjoyed and they bought. So that's how I slowly started to grow my showreel. And eventually, I wanted to make a film after the years that I was directing commercials, but at the time there was no Imagination, there was no 2454. And then again, I had to keep knocking on doors until my knuckles bled. So what I'm saying is, it's a crazy decision, but you have to be brave to do it, and if you're passionate enough, you will succeed. And alhamdulillah, I'm here today. I have people like 2454, Imagination, who have supported me in my second film. And that's all I can say is that if you have the passion, keep fighting.
So I just have to say that is absolutely the perfect message. It's what you're willing to do to get on a film set, to get your start, to get in the room is just fantastic. So thanks so much for saying that.
And I think it's also the perfect ending for this panel, because you gave the message that we didn't really talk about very much, because we were talking about the structural issues of our industry. But ending it on such a personal note, I think brings home really and completes the circle of this whole conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did.
شكرا جزيلا أيها السادة. لا شك أن عرب وود ستكون المقبلة وبالطبع سيكون لها مستقبل في القريب العاجل. كل الشكر لكم.
Thank you so much, gentlemen.